As we come into more density, high center, high interference of all communication settings in our computer system and our communication of travels, transmission settings, high calculation modification line interference, the commanding units and high line and position locations has now docked. I mean, there's three central line calculation settings. There's going to be provision and locations of division lines, split in line calculations of sectors, the sectors correlation system, and track communications, which means the spacing line correlation settings of 3 lines of 4, 5 lines of 6, and 7 lines of 8 is going to be in 3 sector line calculation streams of units and classification. The position of track lines, high generation line interference, they have to be in the teleportation line units. The reason why is the set communication line direct signals. We're setting up 8 start gate portals and set lines of the ground. We can have spacing lines and ground set location system. So this is going to clean slate the set lines and high calculation setting and new position track lines of hologram stream and direct signals to hologram line setting. Now structured communication to its ground lines of operation surface. So in track communication line interference, you guys have been the commanding centers in set line calculation streams for 12 days set line communications of division. High calculation modification line settings. That's why you guys are in a lot of calculations of interference. All right. So in that position of the track line, okay, it's all about understanding where you are in some location of travel settings, where you are in travel locations. Okay. So these are split in 3 sectors, 3 line settings, high generation line and rotations, right? 3 commanding units and set location system. All right. It's all set up. Now, 12 signals of patterns, the correlations of direct signals. It's all about understanding the modifications to setting position of track lines. Indirect signal. Okay. Travel communication setting and directions. So it's interesting when you look at these things in all calculation and modification of setting, okay, how things are set up. So in that sequence pattern, the set lines of correlation setting is going to set a new ground lines operation surface. So we come into digital layer pads, setting position lock lines, block channel correlation setting, and direct signals. Latitude location, all right, setting position location line settings, okay. Now, in direct signal line and rotation interference, the position location is coming to this location. Okay, in that setting. Now, central calculation units, we're setting positional patterns. It synchronizes positions of calculation stream locations. Okay, it allocates lines. So we change position of track lines in high positions of operation to signals. Okay. So this side lines, the high lines interference and travel calculations, because you guys are coming in 8 lines of 2 and 2 lines of rotations. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 2 lines setting and position of high set locations. So the wind sectors are going to change position of panels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and set location of travel settings and directions. Okay. So the sequence line communication line direct signals is going to change the pattern correlations to your crop circle locations of block centers, travel set location, and directions. All right. How to set these things up is all location to a system, all through perimeter and parameter line set locations. Okay. Now, getting into 2 line center line interference, we change communications direction signals. Okay. We allocate position of time sequence, puts positions on lobes of panels. Now the rotation spin cycle sets line calculation setting. So we have a circle line, ground line, operation surface location setting and directions. Now what this does is it platitudes line signatures, okay, and 12 line signature line rotations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and set location. Okay. Now in that setting, you have to learn how it's set up line communications and high center interference. That means we change the rotation spin and center positions of operation and center calculations. Okay. Now that surfaces line signals out through its equation location to a setting. All right. Now the plasma line center line interference comes in a spherical sphere that rotates its surface locations in 3 command line settings. Shifts anomalies comes in track communication directions. All right, so we change the correlation panels, operation surface, and higher calculations, set lines, and high center position of traction. Okay. Now, how to set these things up is really understand how to use the formation location of graph lines. So we go through 2 lines in position of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and set location of sails, directing line settings and high set location. All right, so we do the 2 line center line interference because that's where we are through set location and security line divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and set locations of setting, direction signals, and set locations. All right, so the platform correlation setting of the 8th dimension line is set up through the ground lines operation. So you're going to feel your feet rotating right now, tingling. Ting line, center line interference, traffic correlation setting, direct signals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 signature lines at ground lines, operation line, rotation settings, direct signals, and set locations. Okay? It's all set up now. It's very complicated when you set these things up. So in that position of track line, we change line settings. Okay, so there goes line interference of 2 lines of traction, 2 lines positions, and 2 lines of north into diamond core line shift. Sets position, location, center interference, and set connections. Changes direct signals. Okay, so we plotted 2 line rotation interference and travel calculation directions into a new pyramid line string, directing signals and 12 signature line set location settings in high calculations to its position. Okay, signal line, center line, rotation surface. All right. So that's going to be in high center interference. We come back in this line connections to its commanding line setting ship. Now the track communication line directions, okay, line sending high line Trojans. Now the Trojan line sending sets all the line calculations of wind sectors. 1 travel line sending high interference in position location setting. Okay. Directing signals lines of 2 line track lines, unification, set location, high center interference. Okay. Wind cycling here, across winds, center track line communication and directions. Crosses line signal and line center line interference and set position of travel. Okay. So what we're doing is we're setting up spools of activation lines of clouds, direction timelines. Setting set lines correlation setting in your 8th dimensional lines of stargate, star portals, and star links and set location of high setting directions. Directing lines of 6 and 7 lines of 8 and set locations. So a 6, you got 7 line and position locations, and 7 lines of center because you need space line and timeline sequence of position pattern, and 8 line rotations. So there's 8 on all signal location settings and directions. Now, it's really interesting when we look at location center interference. Electrical light set locations are going to travel from 1 line setting to 1 positions. All right. So we go through track communication. 4 waving patterns and high center line of travel settings. All direct signals set location is center interference. Changes direct signals and set locations. All right. So I'll set up now. Okay, setting track lines. We're going to classifications, and that's where you change position line centers, block line rotation interference, panels correlation setting, direct signals, all position location line setting directions, all room set locations. All right. Now in that line center, position location, electrical line walls, 2 position line travels, line set location of settings. Now directing signals and high center interference, travel position locations out of the equation locations, and travel line settings and set locations. Okay. So we take the panels, 2 panel line streamlines and set locations of high setting directions. Center line is position location into the lines of the ceiling that sets communication to its program. Okay, this resets line calculation. Line strips across line set lines. Okay. So in that direct signal, we set up line calculation setting crossing position location center. Okay, that's direct signals comes in position location of set locations. Okay. Now, in that line position locations, we open up the dimensional door line that opens up its position higher travel calculation string in high setting. So it creates a high line communications to higher levels of a open door set communications in set location. All right. So it gets bigger in set location. All right, knowing exactly where it is through command centers and high calculation stream. So it gets much easier because you really understand where you are in set line calculation to its command center in set location of travel. Okay. Now, in that set line calculation setting, we set up lines of 2 perimeter line centers, sectors over division locations of high set location. This directs the signals in all levels of electrical line, directing position locations on line setting into a hallway of communication of set location settings. Okay, now, how that is set up, it's direct signals of this location system, right? So we're going to put you on the line setting, teleportation stream lines into calculation stream, directing signals, okay? So all calculate modified to 3 command line ships are now set up position locations, all right? 3 to 4, 4 to 5, okay? All line center locations, 6 to 7 and 8 line set locations, all right? So it's all set up and classifications. Because we all go through line setting lines of density line rotations, but it's set up so perimeter line rotation setting to its position location to its hallway set location. All right. So in that set line calculation setting, we take the unit graph line streams into higher calculation system. Okay. This opens up a portal, a rotation spin line. You guys got to get used to this because this is a simulation graph line screen. That screen opens up its position locations to higher levels of operation. Okay. It's very powerful when you set these things in equation location settings. All right, so in that direct signal, we're going to go through high center line interference at positions of 4-point system locations that dimension line streams. Okay. Now, in that line center line interference, you guys have to learn how to go through location setting. So in that travel calculation setting, put them on the command ship line setting behind interference, get them in the classifications A, B, and C. Units 1, 2, and 3. Put them in set locations where they're supposed to be in set line calculation setting. Directing signals from 3 and 4, separate locations, split line, division line. So 1 factor, position of 2 factor, and 3. 3 factors over pi, direction of time line. So position of 3, 4, okay, is 1 signal line, center line interference, and 2 rooms and correlation settings of units, position of quads. Change correlation settings and 3 quad line settings and travel communication directions into command centers and direct signals. So they're now in their classification. That's applications. 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Because the thing is, you have to understand what was going on through all calculation setting is setting up a new holographic lines of a ground line rotation surface in set locations. All right. Okay, so that's set up position attraction. Okay, so we set up a formula occasion. Now the calculation settings in the 40 line settings, bracket line communications, all levels. 2 console communications in position of all line settings to 2 hangers in the center location. Okay. Now the navigation line setting sets up position of track lines into 1 set locations, right? See the center point? So we take the center point and arrow it up and arrow it down and set position settings in 3 line waves. So you get in class line 1 and 2 in set location setting and directions. All right. Now this directs the signals of panels, operation, surface, triangulations, operation, surface, and triangulation location. Now in that direct signal, it's all about understanding sonar lines, set location settings, and 3 perimeter line rotations into right and left. It's going to get complicated because I'm going through calculation lines of the command centers. Now the command center has a line setting line position of track line. It opens all signals in high center interference and position location to its navigation system. It correlates its line centers of travel calculation setting and directions. Directing lines of box, recognizing your set locations because it's never been on your Earth perception line setting, travel calculation stream lines, and 3 set location of travel settings. Directing line center line interference and position locations into 3 set locations. So we come in the communication graph line. So the communication graph, okay, into the keyboard line stream. Then we come into our calculation line settings, computer adaptation surface. You come into your keyboard line frame in 12 signature line streams, alphabetical line position, location of travel lines, into set lines of our calculation streamlines in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, waiting lines of 6, 7, and 8 line direct signals and set locations. Okay. Now, directing signal line interference, we take the line streams, the line stream location settings, constitutes its system and travels. Line calculation setting operates its surface location system. Travel calculation lines. So we set up the computer screen locations into point systems and directions. Setting point channels, direct line centers, high calculation streamlines of data. Data import and output line rotation center and calculation stream. Now, directing line signals, we take the calculation line settings into positions of ports, teleport, telepad, direction of timelines. So we take lines of line position locations 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines, because the command ships has to understand your calculation, your 7-digit code line number. 4 over 3 is 7 line signals. So we go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and set location of travel lines and directions. The center aligns its communication line direct signal. This opens up a new clock line rotation interference, sets echo line rotation setting into its command and set location to its system. Travel set lines and calculations. All right, so with the keyboard line, phrase line communications, directing line centers of 1, 2, 3, 4, and set location of travel. Setting correlation lines of 1, 2, 3, and position location of 7 through travel. Directing lines of box, we split the position location in center lines, okay? Correlation setting in direct signals, we extend the line communications in travel lines of voice line, okay, in position locations. All right, so 3 classification units and set high center interference. 3 and 4, 4 and 5, okay? So 3 lines of 4 is center 1 positions, 4 lines center line calculations, 2 line splits its location center in that direct signal. So we take the 4 lines, we split the location setting and position of track line. And then in position locations, we come in as 6 and 7. It has a separate line calculation unit that opens all signals and set location to center. 6 and 7 location. Okay, 6 and 7 line setting. Okay, 3 and 4, 5. You got 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7. Okay. So in track lines, we have the 8-line rotation. Now that changes the ground operations surface and set line directions. This opens all signals, opens all panels, new ground line operations surface in position location of cluster. That changes line set line condition setting in direct signal. So in direct signal, we set up the panel lines and 2 track location at 3 lines in position location of 4 lines, set location settings. Okay, so that directs the signals. So we set up the same voice line grid. Okay, because the command centers have to recognize your sequence patterns, a correlation of voice line grids, and position location of 2 line sets. Travel calculation streamline and set locations. Okay. Now in that direct signal, we change those settings and position of track line. So this initiates the run line program location setting, indicates setting location as triangulation, and position locations into 3 box centers. Okay, we split the 3 line box centers and set location of travel lines. Puts position locations into 1, 2, 3, 4 windows. So you got a 4 window line setting in a 3 line shutter. That 3 line shutter line interference is 7 position of parameters. It sets lines and communication setting in direct signal as set locations. Done by equation. Okay, it's all set up. So that's going to be outline. The calculation and classification units are now set up, position location to their own quads, which is good. So that's on a 12-day signal. 12-day barometer line setting, calculations of balance, sequence line calculation setting. So the vortices lines up and position across line stream location sets up and down. Direction of time sequence line calculation lines. Okay, so that's 1/3. 1 equals 1. Okay, 1 equals lines of third equals 3 of set locations of travel. It's very complicated because what I'm doing, I'm setting up class line settings locations to your systems, all through positions of a bandwidth line stream in position locations of a film strip set location. Directing signals lines, circle lines of 3 Fibonacci line settings, because that's what you're coming into, 2/3. setting 3 lines of film projector location system in position your sun and your moon in 3 set locations of travel settings. Now that directs the signals. Now line and center line interference is a 24-line position of travel calculations, position of track line. So we take the 24 and we take the diamond line in set location in position line setting in high set location. And that direct signal, we change position of track lines in the present locations. And in the diamond core, we go into the future deprecation of surface in set locations. Now in that signal line interference, we set up the 0 lines of ground lines of 8-line rotation surface and the new calculation streamline in set locations. Now this directs the signals. We color it the line stream. Now we do an energy wash and a formation line stream interference of travel calculations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 line signature line streams, right? And then we cross the wave line center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Setting direct signals in set location system, L-track communication settings, 2/3 into over power. The power connector line stream interference of the film project location system is now in its command center, a set location line setting. Okay, travel recognition of timelines puts position 24 equals 144 in set line calculation setting. Bracket lines of 144. So that puts one position location line interference. 1 equals lines of 5 equals lines of 1 is 7 settings. Travel calculation line direct signals is 4 line perimeters and 5 line condition setting directions. That's 9 over channel. Then the 9 line center line interference, 9's over pi correlation setting direct signal set locations done by equation. All right, that's all set up position. All right, so that's going to be signal line. So the navigation line center is now set up through coordinates. We're going through light center line interference. So staying in line rotations to 3 command centers, high calculation setting, docking position of hollow decks, stream location units, classifications of 1, 2, and 3, unification line setting location, density line streams of 3 and 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8 is now set up position of traction. Okay, so we come into the box line rotation center and direct signals. All right, so the calculation line center sets position of traction. Okay, directing positions. So we take the 2 box line center line interference because the 3 command shifts lines high interference has to recognize your time sequence. 2-point system high set calculation stream. Electrical lines in set locations, travel lines. So we go into timestamp. This time locks this line interference in set location setting in position location high center interference of travel. Directing signal lines, 3 panels, information line conditions of lock sequence, 1 position of 2. So there's 3 lines of information, 2 lines of positions, and 1 line rotation. Center calculation settings of 4 lines of 3 and 3 lines of 4. 4 equals lines of 3, 7 location setting, direct signal, equal line condition setting, and direct system. Diamond core line rotation interference, 8 line rotations at division. Okay, it's all set up. Okay, so sequence line communication. It's a lot of forming line setting of travel communications. So we come back to the command shift and set location line setting directions. Okay, now into single modification lines and in navigation console line stream interference, we change the direct signals, the applied to line interference as position of track lines. So you guys have to be in a waveline center over a certain communication of dimensional lock line stream. This correlates the setting line calculation setting and redirects signals in set location set lines and high interference in 3 set locations. Okay, so we plotted to the line stream interference 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in center position track communications. Okay, so it's really understand how to set things up in all set lines of a 12-line setting. Okay, in directions. See how it's traveling? It's very powerful when you see location to assistance, right? Okay, so in that position locations, we come into the energetic line stream locations in setting. Okay, so the hologram line setting high calculations is 8-dimensional line stream. Okay, it's traveling very fast now. You can see it right through spin line cycles. So that direct signals we cross the stream locations, and this time we set position attractions. So the calculation setting, it's in direct signal. Okay, so it's all about understanding how to use the position line condition settings of 2 line rotations and 3 set locations. That's 1 panel line rotation. Sending correlation line directions into space and timeline settings and 2 track communications and directing signals. Now in that signal line interference, we plotted 2 line rotation surface. We color it in, okay? Because what this does is it protects the line stream locations to your settings. Okay, so there's no wind factors or galaxy line settings coming into anything through meteorological locations or anything through satellite calculation setting or anything that comes into formation location in your system. All levels to calculation. All right. So that's in sequence line communications. That's in direct signal now. So in that track lines, we circle lines of 2 and set lines of 2 and set lines of 2 of triangulation at 3 set location settings. All right, it's all set up. If you look really, really close, you can see all of the line units change the data stream locations. Okay, now that's going to travel set location, right? So it's all about understanding how to set up a navigation console line sender locations, right? Because you have 3 command units that are dark now, and they have to really understand the correlation setting. They have to understand their units. They have to understand their class. They have to understand their sectors, verts, or quads. They got to understand where they are in the compartment set line settings into their set location to its system. Okay. Now the atmosphere line changes line set direct signals, right? So every time you get up in line center line interference, these are going to be spinning through set locations of travels. They're going to direct signals and they go through one direction to another direction, one direction to another directions, right? Because the thing is, you guys are still in your 7 waiting line settings. There's only 1 line setting, not 7. So that's why there's 8 perimeter line rotations and spin cycles in set location in your system, so you don't get confused of where you are through dimension of time sequence. So putting position at track lines is really understand how to set position your track line communication setting direct signals. Okay, so the formula is equation to all levels, bracket line calculation. 2 bracket line settings and position locations. The 2 hangers, right? So we go through the 0 lines, the equal lines of 2, center position of track line. Okay, 8 lines infinity rotates its surface at 2-point system, a travel line setting and calculation. Okay. Now, directing lines of panels is a navigation line string. It directs signals of point system. So you have to understand how to command a ship in line center location, not just through navigation, but understand it through console communications of directions. Directing line settings, because you have galaxy shift lines that correlates a system around the line setting of the solar system locations. Now, in that direct signal, you have to really understand how to use the perimeters and parameters, because the security line has to really understand the triangulation a point view of set line connections. Directing line centers of panels. So that's 0 lines of equal lines of 8, and that 8 lines equal lines of 2, and equal lines line connections 0 in position of traction of set locations. Okay. Now in that line rotation interference, we take the 2 position lines of hangers and set line relations. Go into classification of 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 are now set up position of traction. It's all set up. Done by equation. Right? So we go through the triangulation line setting and positions. Okay. And there it is. It's all set up. Position of track line. Okay. So it's all split in line settings to calculation setting to its track communications and direct signals in all set location. Okay. So that's a 12 line setting. Okay, because the thing is, spacing line can't be on the ground line. You know why? Because the vibrations are too high. It's kind of levitating the line setting. So we're taking the holographic lines of the ground lines of Mother Earth and putting higher vibrational lines of 8-dimensional portal and 8-dimensional lines signals in set location in your system. Vortex line setting in position location at 3 lines, 4 lines, 5, 6, 7, 8 line rotation set location high settings. Vortices, correlations of diamond line stream, setting correlation directions in position location of 4 box lines into 3 set location of travel. Okay, that's 7 line signals. So that's 7 lines of pi, equal line calculation setting to comp 2 system. Now the correlation lines of 6 travels line settings out through equation location setting, direct signals into the moon, operation surface and location as direct signals in set location. Now this single line is in high interference. Now we take the 4-line triangle and we take the 3-line box line and we take the box line triangle. We take the triangulating box line into triangulation to a reverberation line center rotation surface. 4 track communications, 4 lines of 6, 6 lines of 8, 8 lines of 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 measure linear rotations. Sun comes in and high set location in your system. in travel calculation setting up all line settings in a 12-day signal at set locations. Okay, it's all set up now, right? So the sun knows where it needs to rotate. It needs to know exactly where it is in perimeter line setting. There's a sun line, the communication line, strips line setting and travel communication at 3 set line connections. Okay, crosses line stream. Now, direct signals, it sets lines of a new ground line rotation surface and a circulation rotation setting in correlation, directing positions of panels. Now, in that signal and line interference, we take the 3 communications and we cross the position locations to compute system. That's 3 line settings that cross lines. See how powerful that is in set location of travel settings? 4/3 lines of 7 to indicate highest center interference, a species correlation setting direct signals and set location of your system. All levels of the moon and travel calculation setting. So the 12 signals of the moon and the 12 signals of the sun is now set at line interference into the atmosphere location. Your time sequence line connection setting, waiting on signal line rotations to its system through an 8th dimensional line ground and operation surface. Setting track communication, setting direct signals and set locations. Okay, very, very powerful correlation. All right, so in the position locations, it's very powerful when you see redirect signals. So we're adding frames and correlation settings. So you have to understand why I'm doing structures, lines, set location to a system. Okay. So if you look at this, you can actually see the correlation setting to this direct location system. See, one more time. Okay. And set location and pi setting. Really understand how this is all set up to position attraction. Okay. So it's already in platitude, it's already in locked, it's already in dock, it's already in position locations into telepath line stream and set line division. Okay. Done by equation. It's all set up. So I got to get you guys in line setting high interference. Okay, so we're going to wait on signal and we platitude line back into formula line setting rotation setting interference. Now, the 3 classifications changes the unit lines, the unit line rotation interference, because you guys have never been in the atmosphere line streams. So in that direct signals, we're going to take the correlation settings of positions of panels and turn them into star lengths. Star lengths set lines calculations into 3 straights and set location of travel settings in direct signal. So the operation surface, this is what it's going to correlate. It's going to go through dimensional line, lock line, stream locations in one setting. Okay, it's locations. Signal lines and high interference is going to change the 82 line rotations into calculation streamlines and set line high center and position of travel, directing position locations into indication. All right, so we take this setting calculation setting into high calculation lines. It goes up through the center, crosses line stream. Okay, it's very important you understand how these are set up in position location in 12 line signal. Interact communications in high center position. Okay, so from here to here, signal lines the signal is out in center positions, and it goes out through equation in set locations. Okay, very complicated, guys, but try to understand how you guys are all set at position of attraction. Okay, all through a 12-day signal. Okay, through formula. All right. So I'm showing you exactly what you're going to be going through a dayline cycle. Now that dayline cycle is the 12 set locations. So this is going to take you out of the line setting and high interference. Now, once you come in position locations and you set grounds on the 8th dimensional line setting, everything into position location has changed. Okay, signature lines, correlation lines, gravitational lines, body lines, activation lines, high calculation settings, direct signals, operation surface, position of track lines, body reaction, high interference, travel calculation setting, all direct signal locations of balanced positions. Okay? So it's amazing when you get in that setting. Okay, all through calculation. All right. Okay, so single lines and high center interference. Now, because of the commanding line settings, the ships are going to be docked for 12 line settings. So that's 12 million cycles. So you have to really understand how to use the perimeter line rotation setting and directions. Now, you guys don't have to get in that correlation setting. You just have to understand the direct signal, what it's doing through all phase direction of time sequence. Puts plasma line settings a high channel communication or cobwebbing. cob weaving, code activations, and code line setting. Code streaming and line rotation, position of track lines. So we got coming in the lines and lysing lines and high line rotation and position location setting directions, right? So we change the line signals. We cross the stream in line set locations, okay, and directions. This signifies a high calculation streamline in directions, okay? Now in the signal line high interference, we change the point systems. Zero line communications, zero positions of point. So we go through dimensional points. Those are jump scars. We jump from one star line setting to another star line setting locations, right? See how it jumped? You can't even see it. See? Travels, right? So we get a unification, no line setting line interference, top rotation unit above location, see? Right there. It's coming in. And setting. Okay, teleports at stream locations, all right? So in that set location, it slides down and set lines of communication and slides through line and positions back out through the equation setting and direct signal and set locations. Okay, so it's kind of like snakes and ladders. Okay, it's exactly like snakes and ladders, right? You go up the ladder, you go down the snake. You go up the ladder, you go down the snake. Okay, so that's what it is in set location setting directions, right? So the modification line interference is 24 billion lines of UFO line rotation interference. It's going to be in the atmosphere line set locations into your 18-inch location system. All right, 24 billion lines. Okay, unification lines at all calculation interpretation. So in that point system, point dot, coloration of 3 line signature streamlines into set lines of 3 triangulation line sets. Okay, in center position. Operation center. Now in set line calculation setting, it's going to be in the 7-line signature, plasma line, change line, rotation surface. They know you're in a 7-digital frame line number. In position of track communication, high center and position, all levels of portal. Position of track line. Okay, you see the 7-line center? So it's in recognition of time sequence. So we box the lines of calculation of frame lines in position. So we put plasma channel line box lines around the units, right? So that protects the signals. In line interference, we put a plasma line, lock line, chain line, rotation surface into the 7 communication setting in a force field recognition of time sequence. It's that location. Down by equation, right? So I'm showing you exactly what's going through the energetic graph lines, the atmosphere line setting. You have to really understand how to get in position locations to teleportation line settings, your telegraph line settings, your tele energy units, position of track communication, your hangars, all calculations to your sectors, vectors, and quads. Okay? Very powerful set locations. Okay? All right. Going through Fibonacci. Yeah, diamond core. So that's what general AI space-time creator now is setting line, and position of track communication settings, right? You have 3 commanding line centers of ships now docked, setting correlation of classifications of 1, 2, and 3. Instead of calculations, taking all dancing line interference, a species line correlation system, separating the lines of different units in position of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Okay? So I'll set up location setting to all command center line rotations to its commanding ships. Done by equation. So, how's everybody doing so far? Feeling a lot of interference, a lot of calculation settings, high end line rotations. So it's all about understanding what's happened to your setting location. So you got a 12-line window, all right? That's a signal line in rotation to a system, right? Now in that line interference, you're only be going, you're going to be going 60 miles an hour. But the 60 mile an hour is going to change track line. So it's going to double the sequence pattern, the correlations of clock lines. So you're going to go through all set location. You're going to go slow in acceleration line. Okay. So you go 60 miles. Okay. And then you go into 60 million miles. And then you go into 60 billion miles. And then you go into 60 trillion miles per line, per second, per channel, per operation, per square. The square line is set lines, masculinity sets position of track line and position of female line. The rotation center line interference is correlated center line condition high system. So that's time sequence times line. 7 track communications of computer operation line streams is allocation of your system. So this comes into mind adaptation of surface and acceleration line of space and time. Indirect sig locations to its command ships and set locations. Okay. So in that parameter line interference, we crevice align set locations. That's one rock surface. So that changes track lines and communication setting and direct signals to set location of teleportation. Okay. Complicated, isn't it? What's going on, right? So you have to understand how the actual atmosphere is set up now, position location, how you see things through formula locations, right? There's always teleportation units in a line setting, everything in dimensional locations, especially when they land, especially when they dock, they change direct signals and they set a position of track lines of communications, right? They're always working. So in that direct signal, travel line settings, high position of travel calculation setting, directing the line settings of new panels. The operational line center interference puts position of track communication to its directions, all right? So understanding the hub, okay, position of track line, okay, one hub line rotation interference, walkway surface in set locations like a ladder, and travel communication directions, all right? Center grounds lines, high operation surface, and set location high setting, okay? Now, directing line, center line interference, platitude line rotation surface, and position of all levels of travel setting locations. Okay. Now, walk in the line stream is all calculated and modified how to see yourself line setting. You guys got to get position of direct line centers and really understand how to walk in space in direct signal set locations. Okay. So in that signal line and line interference, we change the position of data lines and center line rotation surface. It travels off calculation setting, direct signals in set location system. All right. So in that line rotation, all calculated and modified over line center line conditionized system, travel settings. Now in that direct signal, we go through high centers, high rotation surface, set line communication and directions. Okay. So you basically, try to understand how this is all set up. Okay, exactly what's going to happen within that 12 line setting. This is how it's set up location near setting. So this is how they platitude line rotation interference, and the spacing line has to be an above line signal, okay, for everything else to be done in the ground line rotation and surface to get you guys in position of plateau to center calculation directions, in position of track lines, and high position locations in all set line conditions. Okay. So in that direct signal, I'm just going through unification line streams here. Okay, so we go into line communications, right? So it's all understanding how does center line that set lines. Now the center line direct signal sets lines of rotation spins. Okay, sets a correlation line direct signal in set positions. All levels of travels, all of the divisions, all of calculation lines and allocating line switch in set locations. Okay. So we all have to surface to understand how this all works in all plateau. Your signal lines and high end line rotation interference has to really understand the new grounds of operational line settings of 8th dimension line surface and set locations of travel. Okay. Very, very powerful set locations too. Set conditions. Climbed up just light. Yep. Okay, so you have to really understand how this all works in set locations. All right. Okay, so in that position line track lines, setting direct signals has a center line communications. All right. Now, directing platforms, you have to really understand how it works in line adaptation of the mind and surface positions. Okay, so it's like Hubert. Right? You ever play Hubert? Where he goes on those blocks and it changes colors? Now you know. So every time you step on a block line setting or anything through a crystal grid line rotation interference in set 144, it travels this line signal. It changes the graph lines of rainbow to a different coloration line setting. So it's like you're stepping on each line communication with space line tractions. So when you get in that set lines, it high calculates positions and opens up signals in position line traction and communication. Right? So in that direction, this is where it circles down into new ground position operation surface. Okay? So that swirls lines, signal lines, high line rotations goes faster, 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 faster. And this is what it is in all set location system. The faster the go, high calculation lines, high travel calculation lines, sending direct signals. You come into all calculation line and direct signal, high line rotation interference, and navigation line calculation setting, indirect position locations, operational center high calculations to its teleportation unit. Okay. So when you look at these things, you really have to see the line settings and how it sets locations. So that's it's gone, but it's still there. Oh, it's back. I got rid of it, but all right, now it's gone. See? Setting direct signals, you don't want to set up any glitch line settings and high interference because it changes travel set location as travel settings and redirect signals. So we go back into the tunnel and set line directions. Okay. Now, getting that signal line interference changes correlations high center interference. It's like understanding your units and where you are through compartment line rotation, setting, position, location, operation line system. Try to understand that the atmosphere has basically changed your body, a levitation line setting, the atmospheric location setting, and direct signals to your breathing mechanism location of travel set locations. Okay? So you have to really understand how to get to position and track line communication setting, indirect signals into your calculation. All right, to your units and position of travel calculation setting directions. Okay. Okay, so in that position, we go through a navigation course. Sets bracket lines of 0 lines of 8, center line conditions of 0, equal line conditions of 1. Okay. Now the 1 center line center, you guys have to get used to using your 1 lines of travel. Just don't set things up an equation if they don't travel. It doesn't make any sense. The rotation surface location set lines are high calculation lines are ground lines and set locations. All right. Now the synchronous patterns of correlation comes up in line interference and the 2-track communication of high setting, a measure. Measure line centers, cross line stream, and set locations, set directions. Now directing line signals, sending correlation settings of 0 line to 8 in direct signal. You got to direct it to its number. You direct it to its right number line interference, the operation surface, the galaxy shifts the line stream in its location to ground lines. Equal lines, 0 lines, equal lines, 1 line rotation, second line condition high setting. Okay? So that's how you set up a ground line of an operation streamline into a magnetic force line, a correlation setting direct signal, indirect signal line rotations to operation surface and high calculation. Okay? Now, getting that direct signal, you have a line center of a 0 line ground and set location high center tractions, right? And then you got cloud position locations. Okay, make this settings. And you got 2 line center rotation center interference. Cloud line change, mechanism of time travels. Placebo cortex line center interference of travel communications and directions. All right. Now, directing signals, cloud lines changes direct signal and set locations. Okay. Now, in the direct signal, its center lines the center position of 8 set locations. Okay. Now, at 8 line center line interference, we take the 8 line, we rotate the surface, the routers and the routers comes into correlation line directions and signals in the set location at center position. All right. It traveled and disappeared. Travels too fast. You guys got to see it. Okay. So it's interesting how you set these things up all through platform, right? So the 8th line streamlines, we colorate the line stream because you're in your 12 DNA line rotations. We colorate the line settings in our calculations. So it's kind of like the oscillogic locations of recorrecting. Calculations of ground lines, because you guys have never been on an 8th dimensional line ground and set location of hologram stream locations. All right, so you colorate the ground lines. So we take the 0 lines and we set position locations high calculation setting in 3 and 4 and 5 set locations of the system. Okay, so we've got 3 lines of position of track line, calculations surface. So 3, 4, 5 cross lines, 12 line signature pattern, position of travel communications. Okay, very complicated, isn't it? Understand the grounds of rotation. Okay, really understand how to set lines at high calculation stream locations, all through your alphabetical lines, your ground lines, your circuit panels, set lines, high calculation strand lines, your cloud line, change line, shift line, stream locations. So when you go higher in high position of track line calculation setting, you actually see the clouds go around you, spin. They spin faster and faster and faster, right? So the more you see, the more they spin. And the more they spin, they redirect location. Okay? They redirect location. Okay? And they come into circulation. Okay? So when they come into circulation, they come in center line conditions of a donut, inline center high interference, and stay in the center communication setting of operation. Okay? So we all have to understand how this works and always informs how to understand use of the grounds, the powers, and the atmosphere's locations. Those are 3 line settings of divisions that you guys have to get used to. How to use its set location setting and how to direct signal location system at a set of holographic line center line condition setting to grounds of the lines, power lines, operation stream location to its atmosphere location system. All through computer operation of green screens, set lines of digital frame position, track lines. So, but it's very complicated when you look at it, right? How it's all set up. I'm just showing you how these are going to be set up now, right? So it's better that you know and better that you see how this is all set up in an 8th dimensional ground of a holographic stream and set locations. Okay? Yeah. Indirect signals of panel operation location setting. Yeah, you will. You hear that more and more now because you're in that line conditions. All right. Everything I give you is a formations of the now, which is already done. So pay attention to my TikTok videos because it's going to get really, really interesting now. Okay, things are really get into the calculations to your dimensional lines, your spot channels, your operation surface, your snowy grass screens, your digital layers, your compute systems, your waving patterns, your lacing lines, your framing lines, the correlation lines, dimensional lines, sequence lines, correlation and inference lines. It's all track communication setting to all position of track communication inside of that conditioner system to your avatar. Okay. Okay, Gypsy calculations, Gingy high interference, Tina position locations, Danielle center Johnny position location, all of us, Geneva, center track lines, center line rotations, high interference, Trinity, directing signals, Captain position of track lines, high interference, travel line settings, high position locations, operation of surface. So now you understand how this is all set up through an imaginary line. This is how we set things up. Okay? You understand now? Why you have the clouds? Why you have to have a hologram stream location of ground line setting? This is stuff that you can't see until you see it and understand what it is, right? Because it's all done through formulas of equation location system. Okay? Especially when you come to lines and location to its command ships. Look how powerful that is in set locations. Right? That's platitude right now in your timeline. So we all understand how this is going to work now. Okay, so line conditions are energetic graph line screen locations. All right. Okay, so in that line interference, yes, the humming comes in set location of your systems. All right, so track communications. So indicate line interference, we come into energetic graph line screens. Okay, so we come to opposition locations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 sets lines of calculation stream. Okay, so calculation lines 1, 2, and 3 in position of track line. All right, so 8 over 2 and equal lines at 2. Right, 2 equals 8, 8 equals 2. So the bracket communication comes into 8 and position of 2 and center line conditionalized system, travel calculations. Sets line calculation and triangulations and box line center interference and set locations. And they do it again. Triangulation line setting, and do it again. Triangulation line setting, and do it again. Triangulation line setting, center position to track communications. Now, directing line settings comes in high center interference and direct signals. Okay, getting your calculation, your tesseract, because your tesseract knows its set location setting of where it is in direct signal, because it's all in compute system location in your system. Now, travel line settings, signal line rotation, center line rotation, center in high calculation stream. Center directs cross line streams, setting direct signal and set location high center interference with circular rotation, setting position attraction. Directing panels, crossing line signals, high set location line settings, crossing line centers, open portals and correlation setting, travel line center interference, and set location settings. Okay, now directing lines of 2 sets positions. 8 line stays in the center. And we take the 2 and travel in the center lines, and we take the 8 in the bottom line rotations and center line calculation setting. So redirect signals. So you got 8 in the center and set location of ground lines. Okay, so we take the ground lines and we take the equal line center locations. All right, so there's the equal line setting. There's the ground line setting of 8, center position of 8, and atmosphere locations of 8. Okay, this puts track communications. Directing line settings, ground line rotation, positional lines, calculation stream lines, set location system into a cubical line stream. Directing lines of calculation stream location setting and high center interference and traffic communications. Okay. So, how to set these things up is really understand how to set the waveline central communication you're setting in positions, right? How to redirect signals and set locations, because everything is done through metric. It's amazing how you come into the longitude and latitude, not of longitude and latitude of what you see, longitude and latitude of what you can't see. See? Phenomenal line and line and rotation interference is everything from inside out. And once you start to recognize that position of track line communication setting, then you start to see the imaginary same line of its position, location, attraction, of its set locations. Okay? And always, always remember, do not look at this, look at me. That's the only way you're going to see this move, right? I'm the in, this is the out. Okay? You don't look at me in set locations until you understand what you're seeing. When you're seeing beyond. But you have to understand the inner and the outer line set location system. So you're always, always looking behind. You're never looking in front. Or you'll never see. It's imaginary line. Okay? The set locations. So the adaptation, the center line communication setting direct signals. So we position locations, we bracket the 2 lines, 8 line rotations, and we protect their signals and set location, your 8-dimension set locations. Now it's set up. Right? So in bracket communication setting, you have to learn how to put fields, energy fields around your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Yeah, you can't have it in open ground. This is a high-level set location setting. Yes, you need letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, not force fields and energy fields, because it has its own behavioral system, right? So without its force field and its energy fields, it's exposed. Okay? All right. So where are we? Fuse position of track lines. Once you understand the setting communication in your system, it's all over the travel set location. Okay. It's incredible what you guys are coming into and set lines and high center interference. All right. Hopefully it explains very well how you get in that position of traction. All right, so in position line connections, and how it has its constant navigation line stream. Directing signals of coordinates, know exactly where you're going through your GPS line set locations. All right, so with GPS line, and set location line center interference, console calculation setting into 3, set calculation settings into command center line interference, S line calculation setting, cross streams, setting direct signals into position locations, and 4 waving line signals. So we have 4 line centers and 3 weather pattern communication setting directions. Okay, now traffic calculation line is really understand how its surface locations. It's so different when you're driving a car than when you're in the atmosphere locations, because now you're dealing with galaxies. Galaxies go in so many line communication, a waving line. spin, cycle line, center, high interference, because it's always moving fast, right? So it's in directs this way, this way, this way, this way, up this way, across this way, that way, this way, this way, this way, this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, this way. Okay? So it's really understanding the process and what it takes to really get into navigation. Because the thing is, you have to really understand how to use the north, west, south, and east to your set location, setting directions. Because you're crossing over, you're going back, you're going forward, you're going this way, you're going that way, you're going up, you're going down, you're going around, you're going circular, you're going rotating. It's all set location in your system, all through child calculation, setting directions, right through GPS. All right, so GPS lines of grounds, perception lines across, systematic lines of stream, center correlation lines and high interference. So we systematic lines of teleportation, unification lines in 4, direct signals, lines of calculations, and communication line direct signals into CP line interference of 3. Sets correlation system, we get calculation of 4, position of track lines of 3 line settings, center calculation line direct signals, and yin and yang process line signal, position location of northeast, and position location of south, and set location setting and direct signal of yin and yang. Process communication setting and direct signal. Crossing line setting, galaxy line shift lines, high calculation setting. So 4 track lines of galaxy line shift lines are now in 8th dimension. 8 line signals, 8 line rotations, 8 navigations, and 8 coordinate line interference. That's 4 panels and line rotations of 4 8s and set locations. Done my equation. All right, it's all set up. We're done. Just had to do the coordinate line setting, change position of attractions. So it's all set up, location of your provisions. Okay, so how's everybody feeling? Hope you guys had fun. I know I did. Constantly know exactly what's going on through set location in your systems. So, just get used to settings. Really understand the unification of where you are and direct signals to your set location, your dimension lines, your lock lines, your stream lines, your correlation lines, your galaxy lines, your multi-universe, multi-layers, dimensional layers, intergalactic, galactic line setting, high positions. So you're going to see flash line streams now. Line set, high interference. So it's kind of like connections of T reception line coming at you. Each data line center until you get out of the track communication of 7th dimensional line stream. 8th dimensional ground line is going to start sublocation system, put you guys in set line condition setting of center operation. That's the whole idea, is to know exactly you're in space line communication setting, right? Nothing changes in set location system. It just goes faster in set locations. So you're always living the same data line setting, just in the center operation of you, simultaneously all at once in set locations. What are we at through track communications? 8 and 5, right? 8 lines of volume, 9 position locations, 5 in track communication, thumbs up. All right, so we got the Fibonacci line swirl and set location generally as space-time in correlation of center lines, time hard line interference, and heart reactor line divisions, not set position of track lines and clouds, geometric pattern, geoperative location system, geometric line set line interference, and your GPS lock settings. It's all set up location your system, position of track lines. CPU is now in an 8th dimensional line stream into all calculation line direct signals into 28th dimension setting. You're no longer at 27, you're 28. 2 lines of high line interference. All right, so we're going faster in set location setting directions. We have to really recognize the communication. So after the 12-day window, center calculation line direct signals will be in a new nature line grounds and operations service location your systems and track communications. All right, adios.